Virginia football returns to ACC play. The number 16 team in the country, the Cavaliers, will travel to Chapel Hill to face North Carolina. On this episode of the Good Old Podcast, we preview the matchup against the Tar Heels on Saturday. We look at the major injuries that Virginia has on the roster, who is available and who is not available. Any surprises heading into that matchup? Plus, we take a look back at how they won the game against Washington State. What has been the issues on offense? All that and more coming up on Good Old Podcast.
Yeah, I think Cam was probably going to blitz regardless, so I might have well brought him. He wanted to go make a play, so you know what? We actually came. He came to the sideline during that timeout, and he's like, Rud. And he's like, you need to blitz me. Okay, and then all of a sudden they changed personnel groupings, and we matched sub, and he was going to blitz regardless, so we might as well have brought him. So we brought him.
So was it actually a blitz?
It was a blitz.
Okay.
It was a blitz.
Right.
It was.
Cam Robinson's return to the field certainly having quite the impact for Virginia football. You just heard from UVA defensive coordinator John Rudzinski recounting what happened just before that play, which sealed the win against Washington State, with Cam Robinson hustling through and getting the go-ahead safety. Hunter Osborne was also on that play. So a lot of dramatics at Scott Stadium last weekend. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacquie Franciulli for Wahoo's 24/7 here with a new episode of the Good Old Podcast. I hope everyone is well and recovered from quite the dramatic win against Washington State. It feels like we need another bye week after that game. I hope everyone also is healthy with germ season around schools. We are certainly not, so hopefully everyone can turn into healthy corner. But as we look forward to North Carolina, here are some of the big headlines for Virginia football as they prepare for the Tar Heels, another ACC conference game. And the big thing is to do with injuries. On Tuesday, Virginia head coach Tony Elliott said that center Brady Wilson is expected to be available. Also, offensive lineman David Wollabout Jr. and running back Noah Vaughn. All these players were expected to be available for Virginia after not being available for a few games. Brady Wilson obviously has not featured since that game against Stanford, and Noah Vaughn against William and Mary. David Wollabout hadn't played for Virginia since injuring himself in training camp. So 3 big additions back on the roster for UVA, especially on that O-line that needed additional depth. Unfortunately, after Tony Elliott said on Tuesday that Cam Ross was back at practice on Monday and that offensive lineman Mikhail Boley should be good to go, the injury report released on Thursday evening says otherwise. Cam Ross is now listed as out for the game for Virginia against North Carolina, and Kevin Wigginton is also listed out. He stepped in and was playing right guard after Brady Wilson was listed out because Drake Metcalf was playing center. So he moved from right guard there, and Kevin Wigginton has stepped in, but now he's ruled out for the game against North Carolina. Mikhail Boley is not the only one that's probable. Tight end John Rogers is also listed to probable coming into this matchup. Possibly a big loss if he is not able to play, considering that tight end Dakota Tweedy is out for the long term after getting injured in the game against Louisville. Obviously, the other player not listed is running back Xavier Brown. He is ruled out after hurting himself in the game against Washington State. He had trouble putting weight on his left leg, and that's also one that we are waiting word on how extensive that injury. Tony Elliott said in his press conference on Tuesday that they were still waiting scans, MRIs to figure out what level of injury it was. So those are the biggest injury news, but also a transfer news, well, potentially transfer news, because Sedarian Harrison, a wide receiver, has decided to redshirt to preserve his eligibility. Does that mean he automatically enters the portal? No. He still obviously has an option to return to Virginia. Tony Elliott said that that he is planning to redshirt unless there's a big emergency at that position, and Sedarian Harrison may be available. But as of right now, he is redshirting for Virginia. So those are your personnel kind of notes heading into the game against North Carolina. So what does this mean? Well, how about we hear from Des Kitchings and Chandler Morris about what it means to have Brady Wilson back in the lineup. Now.
I think it's for everybody because, and Drake obviously done a great job for us, but you know what? Drake's excited to be back at guard, but he was called upon to be the center and did a good job for us. So I think now you get, Drake back at guard, Brady at center. You got Noah, Josie, you got Bull, you got Jack Whitmer, kind of that group that was there, from the start. So it's really common for everybody, right? It's common for the quarterback. It's common for the skill players, for everybody in this building. So.
Huge. I think we all have a ton of confidence in Brady at the center position, and Drake stepped in. He did a great job these past 4 games, however many it was. But we've got a ton of confidence in Brady and getting to move kind of Drake back to that guard position and have him going back to work there. I think he's more comfortable at the guard position, so it's going to be a lot of fun having Brady back.
How much is not having that consistency up front kind of changed the dynamic also on the offense the last 2 games?
It'll change it a little bit. I mean, nothing major. At the end of the day, it was just us kind of hurting ourselves these past couple weeks, and especially this past Saturday. So I mean, it'll change a little bit, but I think it's just going to go back, kind of have us go back and get back to the basics and really see what's gone wrong, which we understand what has, and trying to go fix it.
Having Wilson back is certainly a positive for Virginia. Don't get me wrong. I've praised the offensive line and what they've been able to do. Jeff Metcalf coming in at center, Kevin Wington coming in at right guard. You had Jack Whitmer at right tackle, and then obviously your guys at the left side who has been pretty consistent with Noah Joseph, Mikhail Boley. They've had good, solid games. I mean, they've not yielded many sacks. I believe it's just 1 or 2 sacks since Brady Wilson has been injured. He had 2 sacks against Florida State, and I believe it was 1 or 2 against Louisville. So they did a good job of kind of holding down the fort while Brady Wilson recovered from a calf injury. The issue is we are starting to see kind of the ramifications of losing that veteran depth on the offensive line, because not just Brady Wilson, right? You had several other injuries, and that's what we saw against Washington State. Because what Washington State did in that first half against the offense, which didn't allow the offense to get into rhythm, is they looked like they confused the front a little bit. It looked like when you look back on film that sometimes the offensive linemen and sometimes the offense, either most of them will go on one side and then you would have one go to the left. So it was kind of a little bit of a confusion where that created a gap for the rushers to come through. So at that point, especially with Mikhail Boley limping at the end of the game too, which is why he's on the injury list. The injuries, just caught up. You need that calming presence of Brady Wilson. That's what you heard from Des Kitchings. He is a calming presence, that veteran. And you also needed Drake back at right guard because he was having a very strong season at right guard. He did great work at center for what he, coming in. But at right guard, that's where they need him there, because when you look at the rushing yards, yes, they did good against Florida State. I think what Virginia was able to do on the ground and what Jamari Taylor was able to do on the ground speaks for itself. But they still didn't produce what you have been accustomed to them in the first couple games of the season. They were averaging about 200 yards rushing up until Brady Wilson's injuries. And then in the last 2 games, especially when they started facing some defensive line, like Louisville's defensive line, the Louisville's pass rush is probably one of the best in the ACC. They went after Miami's offensive line, who should be one of the best offensive line in the ACC. So they were being tested, but you can see what was going on in the offensive line depth, because Virginia has not produced rushing yards that they did prior to Brady Wilson's injuries. So again, having him back is going to be big. When you look at Jamari Taylor before Wilson and after Wilson with yards after contact, you see a notable difference. He now averages 3 yards after contact. Prior to Brady Wilson's injury, he was averaging a little over 4 yards, almost 5 yards after contact. Against NC State, he ran 8.5 yards per attempt after contact. At Stanford, it went down to 3.87. And even against Florida State, where he had a solid game for Virginia, it was 2.81. And then that is coming into a game this week that has North Carolina actually top 40 nationally in run defense. So having Brady Wilson back is huge when you consider the other injuries that Virginia has, including Dakota Tweedy. Dakota Tweedy had a very quiet season when you look at the grand scheme of things of where Virginia's offense and some of the playmakers that they had making plays. Dakota Tweedy was having a very solid season at the tight end position. He was doing good at pass protection. He was doing good at run blocking. What he also did was also get himself open and given an option for Chandler Morris. I mean, I don't know how many times you see Dakota Tweedy or Sage Ennis, for matter of fact, in the end zone open, but you also take a defender away because his capabilities. And that's what they're missing right now. And also their 12 personnel sets where they used to like to have Sage Ennis and Dakota Tweedy both on the field at the exact same time. I mean, we highlighted a few of those when we do our 1st and 10 series on Wahoo's 24/7. So again, that was a very big loss. And I think it's not discussed enough and what this means to this offense, because you need to adjust your playbook a little bit. And then with John Rogers being on the probable list, you're going to look at Walker Wallace as their 3rd tight end, and he's adjusting to the game of football, right? I mean, he's coming in after playing lacrosse last year. He's a national champion winner in lacrosse last year. But again, it's also an adjustment. So that injury is also affecting the 3, 2, 1. I think that's actually a really good spot to stop for right now, because we're going to take a break. And on the way back, we're going to hear from Chandler Morris and talk a little bit about this offense, because the defense has kind of turned a corner, but it seems like the offense has hit a roadblock. So we'll discuss coming up.
The first thing I said in the locker room, I mean, good teams find a way to win, and even when you don't have your best that day, and the defense has kind of bailed us out the past 2 games, and that's awesome to see. I mean, because there's going to be games down the line that, I mean, the defense is going to have to bail us out, or the offense is going to have to bail us out, and that's a sign of a good football team, and just finding ways to win.
Chandler Morris there talking about that big win against Washington State, about how good teams win when they're not playing their best. And the offense certainly has not playing their best, or what we've expected for them to play. The last 2 games against Louisville and Washington State, there were the 2 lowest productions for the offense. Right now, since October, Virginia's had 210 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Very different than averaging over 200 yards rushing coming into this last 2 matchups. And this is going to be a big key to the game here when you consider it, because North Carolina's run defense is number 36 in the country, and they allow 119.17 yards per game. So for Virginia to really open things up for Chandler Morris, especially with Cam Ross kind of out, and Cam Ross is a player where you have to plan around and he's not going to be in the game, you want that run game to start. So you're going to look at Jamari Taylor. You're going to look at Noah Vaughn, who actually is the player that has the most yards after contact average. That was something that when I was looking as a preview to the game, I'm trying to find the stats here because I had written it down. Actually, here it is. So when I was talking about Jamari Taylor, right now he averages about 3 yards after contact. And Noah Vaughn now averages 5 yards after contact. Remember that game that he got hurt? It was kind of like his coming out game against William Mary. He was being one of the most productive running back. And Keith Gaither and even Tony Elliott says that, and I actually think Tony Elliott even said it the week after he got hurt, so the press conference that Tuesday after, that Noah Vaughn, when healthy, is probably one of the most well-rounded running backs in that running back room. So for Virginia, if Noah Vaughn stays healthy, that is really good for them. But also him healthy being this game could be well-timed, considering what Xavier Brown brought. I mean, not only is he an asset in the run game, but also in the passing game. And we don't have Cam Ross. You now lose Xavier Brown as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of add Noah Vaughn to the group. But man, the offense has, struggled. There's no way to sugarcoat this. The offense has not played well since the game against Florida State. Were able to put those points against FSU in that shootout. Chandler Morris has been playing with a nagging shoulder injuries. He says he's as healthy as you can be after playing so many games of the season. He is expected to play. There's nothing said that otherwise. Chandler Morris talked to us, as you saw earlier in the show, and he talked a little bit about why the offense isn't moving the ball. We talked a little bit about Washington State and what we saw, how it feels like the O-line injuries were catching up. Tony Elliott, when was asked about the offense, said, we lack the consistency with the O-line guys, but now you're returning guys that what we started with, if Mikhail Boley is able to play. And that'll be the first time that those 5 offensive linemen will be lining up together since the beginning of the year. Chandler Morris, went from being a high percentage completion guy to 63% of his passes completed against Louisville, and he had his lowest completions percentage against Wazoo at 60%. Now, the good news for Virginia, and we talked about the run defense and how UNC's is pretty good, their pass defense is actually very vulnerable. So they're allowing about 240 yards per game. So this is a time for the offense to start getting that rhythm. Just don't be cutesy. Don't overthink a little bit. Do what you do best. Against Wazoo, they only had 10 carries in that first half alone. A lot of it also is that Washington State dominated the time of possession, so the offense couldn't come on there and score, but also they weren't running the ball. They took a little while to get that run game going, and I think that, starting off with that Trell Harris kind of bobble pass that fell kind of took him out of the rhythm a little bit. But like you're going to hear from Chandler Morris and Des Kitchings here, there's a lot of details too that the offense hasn't been able to sync up.
Louisville, we just felt like we missed our layups, right? There's some drops that, you catch a couple balls, right? You stay on the field. And then Saturday, it was third and medium, right? Because we were probably as efficient all season on first down, P and 10, when you look at it statistically. But we was not good on third and medium, where we had been really good all year. So we wasn't able to stay on the field when we had, third down and 4, 5, or 6. And so that was a big part of it, yeah.
On the defensive side, things have certainly turned a corner for UVA's defense. And that's something that we discussed in, I think, a couple podcasts ago, how the defense was going to take a little while to get together. And some of the issues that we've been seeing in the secondary was some miscommunication issues. We saw that, against NC State, when I did the review for that game, we talked a little bit about, looked like Virginia was still trying to figure out the personnel on the defensive line because they had so many new pieces. And some of those new pieces weren't even playing together until we actually started the season, because the secondary had a lot of guys hurt or injured or sick during fall camp, and they didn't come in prior to spring ball. A lot of those guys came after spring ball. So we never had the ability to learn how they play together, learn how what the other guy does, learn how you communicate. Even John Rudzinski mentioned that even their language and what they call for had to kind of be adjusted as you go. And actually, here is John Rudzinski and James Jackson a little bit talking about the defense and how much they've improved.
Our communication has gotten better every game. In practice, you see it, guys are practicing better. Practice habits are getting better across the defense. And I think that definitely played a role, guys getting here in the summer. But I think, everyone has the right intentions. Like, everyone is trying to get better and trying to help the team. And, it's hard to all be on the same page. Like, that's what good defenses are. They do that. They communicate at a high level. So I feel like we're getting better at that every week. And we just need to keep doing that, keep getting better, keep, trying to get on the same page from the D-line to the linebackers to the defensive end or defensive backfield. So, yeah.
I think that communication, like any organization or any family, the longer that you're together, the better that you get as far as the verbal and nonverbal communication. It's the same thing that we see with our defense is every day when guys work together, when they get an opportunity to practice together and then ultimately play together, what you do is you see the communication is cleaner. And again, what you do is I think you also see comfort knowing that, again, all right, you know what? My teammate knows exactly what he's going to do. It never gets old as far as making sure that we're communicating. We're learning things every week as far as, okay, got it. Like, hey, was this signal the right signal? Hey, that call, maybe it's sounds too similar. We had to actually change a call early in this week where it rhymed. So I tell you what, if it rhymes, you can't have two words that rhyme. You're just asking for us to mess it up. And so one of the guys, James brings up, it's like, nope, coach, it sounds too similar. And we end up having to change that. So communication, it's so important for any good organization. The blessing is that we have a really good depth. A bunch of guys are playing. And I think that you have an opportunity and you just get to platoon, and you got to throw a new guy in against a guard that might be playing 65 or 70 snaps, and the guy across from him, you know what, he doesn't have to play that many. And so, and they're also anxious to get in there, so they're amped up and ready to go, and there's some change-ups and some different style of pitches that we throw at those offensive linemen, which has been really valuable.
Are there plays that the Virginia defense still needs to improve? Of course. I mean, they're still allowing some big plays in the passing game. We saw them a couple of times against Washington State in that first half, but you have to admit that in the second half, this Virginia defense has been able to shut down teams. I mean, what they were able to do against Washington State, where Washington State did not get 100 yards of total offense in that second half. They got, I believe it was 66 yards in that third quarter. And they also got only 8 yards on 8 plays on the fourth quarter is quite outstanding. Now, shout out to the Scott Stadium crowd who helped that in the fourth quarter. I mean, they forced Washington State to have a couple of pre-snap penalties. I mean, I think it was 2 or 3 false starts in a row, which then led Washington State to have something like a panic in that third down, and threw an interception where Jason Brevard was able to get, and Virginia was able to come back and score from that in a field goal. So, yes, the Scott Stadium crowd helped, but what that Virginia defense allowed is to get that crowd involved. I mean, I remember the Cam Robinson tackle that was kind of like a WWE audition. That tackle kind of lit up the Scott Stadium crowd, and then obviously they got the go-ahead safety to give Virginia the win. And then against Louisville, it was their 14 points that helped Virginia get the win as well. So this has been a good step forward for the defense. When you look at their sacks, I mean, they've had 15 sacks in 4 games. I asked Tony Elliott and John Rudzinski, as you heard there, about the defensive line depth, and that has been a big difference, right? When you have that D-line depth, you're going with guys that have had like 20 snaps a game, going after O-linemen that's probably had 60, 70 snaps a game. So you're able to bring more different packages. You're ready to put your speed package in. Jason Hammond's going one-on-one with an O-lineman that's been playing the whole game, and he's there fresh and playing really well. He's had one of his best games against Washington State. You also have Milton Milton and Daniel Rickard able to get to the quarterback, coming off the edge, causing those one-on-one in the interior. And that's where you're getting all this pressure from. And that's where you're getting all this success from. And that's happening a lot in the second half. It's like this, if Virginia is having a close game, oftentimes you can expect them to either pull away or at least get the win. That's what's been going on because of their defense. Their defense is outlasting other teams because of being fresh up front. That has been the biggest thing. And we talked about the D-line depth in extensive ways coming into the season, and now you're seeing it. So you're seeing what the benefit it is for having several different interior defensive linemen. Jacob Holmes is having a good, solid season. Anthony Britton is having a good, solid season. Jason Hammond is having a good, solid season. Jameer Carter is having a good, solid season. And what you're doing is you're seeing guys like, for example, Anthony Britton and Jason Hammond likely can come in on both passing and run downs, but then you have Jameer Carter, who's more of a guy who can play against the run. You have, Jacob Holmes, who are coming in at passing downs. And then you have Maddox Marcellus coming in on third down. So you have guys for different situations, and they finally figured out the right personnel, the right combinations, and the right substitutions. And that's why you're seeing no success. It was about learning about the team. And that was why it took a little while. So now you're seeing the benefit of that. So now you just need the offense to get back on the page, so that you can have the whole team seeing that kind of success. So North Carolina is obviously, they're playing at Chapel Hill for a noon kickoff. What do they need to do? Well, they need to make North Carolina earn the points, right? You don't want to give any points away. You've got to make them earn it. Do not give up those explosive plays. Although North Carolina hasn't been known to get those explosive plays, especially in the passing yards, that is something you want to avoid, right? You don't want this to be the first breakout game for North Carolina. So make them earn their points. UNC has only had 12 plays of 20 yards or more throughout the entire season so far. You don't want to be allowing any of those to get North Carolina's offense any sort of momentum. You want for Chandler Morris to have protection, give him time to pass the ball, and also run the ball so that you can keep that time of possession. Virginia has not been able to control the time of possession as much as they would like in the first half, which has not allowed their offense to get into a rhythm. This is an offense that needs to find their rhythm, and they have not been able to do that. Then you win over the turnover margin. The reason why Virginia has been able to win so far in the last 2 games was because they won the turnover margin. Chandler Morris has, although the offense has struggled, they have not turned over the ball. Meanwhile, the defense has forced takeaways. That, in the end, has secured these wins for UVA. So winning the turnover margin is a big one. Now, Virginia is the heavy favorite coming into this game. North Carolina, you've heard all the noise. You've heard everything that's going on. Virginia is the heavy favorite. I am picking Virginia, but I do not think it's going to be a blowout. I think Virginia is still working on a few things, and there's still just enough injuries to give me pause on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think North Carolina's offense will be able to move the ball effectively against Virginia's defense. So I'm going to pick Virginia, but I'm only going to pick them by 10. And I wouldn't even be shocked if this was a 1 touchdown, 1 score win for UVA. And it's just more about the offense and what they've showed the last 2 games. I think Brady Wilson returning will certainly help. But because you don't have Dakota Tweedy, you don't have Cam Ross, and you don't have Xavier Brown, I'm curious on how they work those other guys, especially with John Rogers on the probable list. So that's why I'm thinking it's going to be a closer game than maybe some UVA fans expected coming into this matchup and what we're hearing from North Carolina. Because against Cal, North Carolina did look a little bit better. So I think that is the key there too, is that North Carolina did look better against Cal, but Cal had their chances to pull away. How much that was Cal hurting themselves, or how much was that North Carolina turning the corner? So that's what we're going to see on Saturday. But the key for Virginia too, and I'm going to leave Chandler Morris here. I'm going to bring him on here for a kind of like a final mention by him, is that this is a guy that committed to Virginia rather early in his transfer portal process. And he was pretty adamant that Virginia was going to take the next stage in the program. He was going to have a championship. He wanted to come here to Virginia and win a championship. And that mentality and those leaders that are in that locker room, the reason why Virginia has also been able to win those close games is because you have those veteran guys, senior experience, and guys who have been there, done that. And that's what's been permeating through the locker room. And that's the message that you see whenever you talk to these players.
I think we're winning close games, which we didn't do a lot in the past. You know, there was a lot of times where we were right there and we just didn't finish. We didn't have the discipline. We didn't have, you know, some of the things we needed to be able to get those wins and grind those out. And that's something that I feel like we have this year. I think a lot of it comes from leadership on the team. A lot of guys who, you know what it takes. We brought in some winners. We've also had guys who Coach E has developed over the years, and a lot of those guys kind of know what it means now and know what it takes to win those close games. So I feel like that's kind of what you've seen this year.
First team meeting, I stood up, and that's what I said. I wanted to go win a championship here. And so, I mean, at this point in the season, it's about handling success. I mean, we've had some success that maybe this place hasn't seen in a while like this. And so it's going to be about us kind of sticking and protecting our culture inside our building and just going to work every day.
So busy few days for Virginia. Obviously, Virginia has also picked up 3 in-state commitments since that Washington State game, 2 of them coming in Washington State and 1 of them coming in on Thursday. You have Lonnie Andrews, a quarterback out at 7.57, Gene Jones, a defensive lineman coming out from the 7.57, and Derek Fisher, a safety coming in from the 7.57. So Virginia helping Virginia winning those battles in-state, which is going to be huge for the Cavaliers moving forward. And I expect them to lead for several in-state players in 2027. They're also looking ahead at maybe flipping some 2026 players as well. So don't think 2026 is done just because you're saying 2027 commits. So a lot of content coming on Wahoo's 24/7. That's my segue. We have plenty of game coverage. I will be at Chapel Hill, so we'll have coverage from there. We will also have coverage from Virginia men's basketball's exhibition game against Villanova. That's happening on Friday night. And we also have more recruiting coverage. I mean, we kind of hinted that there was going to be a commitment this past week. We talked about the 2 commitments, and we kind of hinted there was going to be a 3rd commitment this past week. And then we also kind of mentioned which players to watch. And now we're going to move forward as Virginia. If Virginia continues to win on the field, you're going to see those benefits in the recruiting trail. Virginia has been on the road. They are offering new players. I mean, they offered one of the best 2028 players on Thursday night, and he's in a good spot with them. I mean, he enjoys the academics at Virginia. I think that was the first thing that he said when we did talk about him lining the Virginia offer and when he was visiting a couple weeks ago. So all this is on Wahoo's 24/7, and we'll continue to have that coverage as the weeks ahead. So make sure you head over there, and obviously I'll be over here on the podcast. So click on the bell, and whenever there's a new video, you can have it be notified, and head over to wherever you listen to your podcast and leave us a review. So for right now, I hope you guys have a good weekend. Let's cross our fingers for no last minute dramatics. Let's have a good game. I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend.